everyone. Today we are going to be looking at our lesson 1 on Australia's system of government. So we are going to understand what it means when we say system of government. So a system of government is a rule that rules the country. So a government of a country creates the rules and it makes sure that we follow those rules within that country. So there are different types of systems of governments. So we're going to have a look at 3 of them today, but there are quite a few other ones that we know. So we're going to have a look at anarchy. And anarchy is a society without a government. So they don't have a government there that sets any rules, that sets any laws or anything like that. So it's ruled by everyone, and that is the society that they're in. Democracy is a society where people say how they people have a say in how they are governed. So people have a say in who leads their country. People have a say in what rules lead their country. People have a say in what is happening within their country. And then we have a dictatorship. And dictatorship is where power is given to one person or to one group, and they decide without talking to the country what is going to be happening within that country. So we have a look at these 3 different types. Which one would we say is in Australia? So glad you said it. Democracy. So here in Australia, we have a democracy system of government. However, so to explain democracy in a little bit more detail, so democracy is a type of government where people have a say in how they are governed, so how the country is run. It is governed by elected representatives, meaning people of Australia that are over the age of 18 and Australian citizens, they get to elect who they would like to lead the country. They get to elect who represents them in leading the country. Now, Australia is that little bit more different in the fact that Australia is democracy, but it is also a constitutional monarchy. So we're different to America, and whereas they don't have a constitutional monarchy, Australia, we do. So living in a democracy, what are the freedoms? So what do you get by living in a democracy? Well, you get the freedom of being able to have an election and being able to be elected. So you have the freedom to be able to vote for people that you would like to lead the country. And you also have the ability to, if you want to do that, which I'm hoping some of you do, you can choose to be elected and you can choose to run for government. You don't have to be born into a certain family or of a certain status in society. Anyone can go and want to be elected to become Prime Minister or a representative. We have freedom of assembly and political participation, meaning we can form groups and we can participate in government debates and political debates without persecution. So we won't go to jail for having an opinion on what is happening, or we won't go to jail if we meet with a certain group of people to discuss politics. Freedom of speech, expression, and religious belief. So living in a democracy, we get the freedom of speech, meaning you can say your opinion and you won't go to jail or you won't be hurt for it. You can have freedom of religion, so you can decide what religious belief you have. We have the rule of law, meaning that we must obey that rule, but that law has been decided by our government, which we have elected. And then we also have other basic human rights, which we will go through later. So benefits of being in a democracy. So there are ways to resolve different views and conflicts peacefully by our freedom of speech, is freedom of expression, assembly, and our rule of law. We respect there is respect for human dignity, so everyone is entitled to your basic human rights for being a human. That means having an education. That means having access to medical care, having access to food and water and shelter. We have the freedom to act, speak, or think freely, as long as it does not stop others from doing the same. So we do have that freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of religious belief. However, we can have that, but it can't stop someone else from having their own opinion and their own belief. We have equality before the law. So regardless of what family you're from, how much money you have, you must obey that law. Okay, so that's a benefit of living in a democracy. We have a safe and secure community. Because we have these laws and we're all equal, it makes our community a lot safer and a lot more secure. We have good government that is efficient, transparent, responsive, and accountable to citizens. Because we have elected our government, and in democracy that everyone elects their government and their representatives, it is really important for the government to be really upfront and tell its citizens what is happening and what they're doing about certain things. And we have the ability to hold elected representatives accountable. So if we've elected someone, they need to deliver on what they've said. And a lot of the time that doesn't happen, and which is why there's a lot of debates happening around the world in a lot of democracy countries. So we have responsibilities. So living in a democracy, you have a responsibility. You must support and defend the Constitution. You must stay informed of the issues affecting your community. You must participate in the democratic process. So if you're over the age of 18 and you're a citizen of Australia, you need to participate in voting. You need to be aware of what is happening, and you need to know what it is that you're voting for and who it is that you're voting for to represent you. You need to respect and obey federal, state and local laws. We'll get up to what federal, state and local mean later. You need to respect the rights, beliefs and opinions of all others. So you're entitled to your opinion, but somebody else is entitled to their opinion, and that's okay. All right? So you need to participate in your local community. So you need to know what's happening within your local community. You need to pay income and other taxes honestly and on time to federal, state and local authorities. You need to serve on a jury when called upon. So a jury is in courts when someone it's being decided whether they're guilty of committing a crime or not. They have a set of people that sit on the side and they listen to the case, and they can act and decide whether that person is guilty of committing that crime or not. And everyone in Australia should have to do a jury duty at some point. But there's a role and it gets chosen at random. And if you get chosen, you need to go. And then the last responsibility that we have is to defend the country if the need should arrive. So if Australia was to go into war and all of our army go, all of our armed forces go, all of the reserves go, and they still need help, it is a responsibility of living in a democracy that you will defend the country. So, like I said before, Australia's system of government, we have a constitutional monarchy. So we are a representative democracy, meaning people vote for people that vote for representatives to present their ideas and interests. So we vote for who represents us in our government. And then Australia's parliamentary members are then elected by the Australian people and make laws on behalf of the Australian people. So you vote for who you think has the same beliefs as you, and they will go into government and represent you. We also, however, have the constitutional monarchy, meaning a king or queen is our head of state in accordance with the constitution. So in Australia, we have our head of state, which is the Queen Elizabeth. And Queen Elizabeth doesn't come to Australia all that often. So we have someone that sits here in Australia that acts on the Queen's behalf, and that is called the Governor-General. So, also we have Parliament. And the Australian Parliament here in Australia meet at Parliament House in Canberra. So Parliament is made up of a monarch and two houses of Parliament, the Senate and the House of Representatives. So the main functions of Parliament: they represent the people of Australia. It is where government is formed. They make and change laws, and they examine the work of our government. So Australia votes to send a person from their local region to represent them in the House of Representatives, and Australians also vote to send people from their state or territory to represent them in the Senate. So we have in Australia a separation of powers. And a separation of powers means that our government can't just make a decision by itself. So our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, he can't just decide this is the law, this is what's happening, and not consult anyone else. And the reason for that is so it avoids having one group have all the power. So we have what is called a separation of powers. So we have the judiciary, and the judiciary have the power to make judgments on law. So that is called the High Court of Australia and its other federal courts here in Australia. We have the Parliament, and they have the power to change and make law. So the Queen, represented by the Governor-General, the Senate of the House, the Senate and the House of Representatives make up Parliament. And then we have our executive government, which power to put law into action. So the Queen, represented by the Governor-General, Prime Ministers and the Minister. So we have three separations of powers. So you have the judiciary, which can make judgments on laws. So they can say, look, we think this law needs to be changed. Then you have the Parliament, who have the power to make laws. So they can decide what law it is, or they can make the changes to the laws. And then you have the executive government, who put that law into practice. Okay, so there's 3 steps and 3 different separations. So it's not just one group that is making all the decisions. So today your task is, you are going to watch the video that is linked on the class website, and it's called What is Parliament? It is the video here. It goes for 2 minutes. Just watch that one. And then once you do that, you're going to then go onto Google Classroom, and there is a quiz for today. It's just to see whether you have understood what we have learned from our lesson today. Again, that one is linked on the class website, but it's also on Google Classroom if you'd like to go through it that way. That's your tasks for today.